Yeah. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Netrix. We're glad you're here. My name is Mike Montgomery. I am a partner here at Netrix, and I run our collaboration and data group. I'm kind of your host for our event today. We're certainly glad you're here. We're hoping that there's a lot of good information for you to take away and take back to your organizations about the digital workplace. So I will introduce our partners. I'll let them introduce themselves so I don't mess it up.
No problem. Jim Manning, I am the director of the Central Region for this company called Akumina. Yes, it's often mispronounced, so I'm being very deliberate in my pronunciation.
Akumina.
I'm joined today by my colleague Troy Trudell.
I think so.
Akumina, yes.
Yeah, Akumina. I'm the Senior Director of Sales and Alliances for Akumina. It's actually a take on a Latin word for acumen.
Yes.
So we re-spelled it a little bit.
All right, great. So we're going to do some quick introductions. We're going to talk about our company just so you kind of get a level set in terms of who we are and what we do. I'm going to kind of give you a point of view of the digital workplace from my perspective, and we'll talk about kind of our own experiences in this area. We already knocked out lunch, so we're ahead of the game. Congratulations, everybody. We get extra points for that. We're going to see a demonstration of the software called Akumina. We're going to talk about some case studies of how other organizations have used the platform. And then I'm going to talk about how we kind of get there. What's the process that we typically use with organizations to go from, wow, that's a neat idea, to, hey, this is really impacting our organization. Questions, open dialogues. We'll get you out of here. I think the promise was 1:30. I think we're right on track for that. I don't think there'll be any issues there. Logistics, men's room, ladies' room. Ladies' room is on the other side of the floor. Ask Caitlin, who's at the front desk, on how to get there. The men's room is on this side of the floor. You go sort of around this way and ask her how to get there as well. That's really the easiest way. If you parked in the parking lot that we recommended, you can validate downstairs at the security desk. If you didn't do that on your way in, you can do it on your way out. It's cheaper that way. And I think that's about it for logistics. We're good? Okay. First of all, I'm going to tell you a little bit about this company called Netrix, where you're at today. This is our briefing center, and we're pretty excited and we're pretty proud of this. We're a technology company, and we're very focused on how users interact with technology, and I think this briefing center is a great example of it. We're able to have remote participants, see video, share content, and even present remotely, so it's a nice facility. Let me give you a very quick, or let this video kind of do a quick introduction to the company, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about us.
Have you ever wondered who Netrix is? We started back in 1989 and have grown to over 300 employees today. Headquartered in the Chicago area, we also have presence in 11 other metro areas in the United States. We have international operations in both Sofia, Bulgaria and Pune, India. Our clients are backed by 24/7/365 support and can also access our executive briefing center in downtown Chicago. Our core services cover all stacks of technology, which allows us to help our clients make business technology simple.
So let's go on. A lot of what we focus on, so we're, as a technology company, we help companies implement technology, and that spans a lot of different areas, as you'll see. One of the things that we focus on is the process that we use to do that, because we believe the process is more important in many ways than the technology, than the solution itself. And I'll talk a lot more specifically about this process, but the big differentiator for us, because these things a lot of companies do, it's the bookends here, the research and the communication, that I think really set us apart as an organization. So we really research, what does your organization need? How can technology impact your organization? We feed that into our process, assess, design, implement, deploy, and then we make sure that there's effective communication to your organization on the outside of it. Because what we found in doing this for so long is great technology is worthless if users don't adopt it and adapt to it. And that's where communication becomes so important. So that's a big part of our differentiator in the marketplace. a lot of different, what we call pillars of service. We can do everything from the room that you're sitting in here. If anybody wants one, I'm happy to sell you one before you leave here today. Obviously, digital workplaces is part of that, but we also do networking and phone systems and security and mobility and all kinds of other great stuff. We are, I think, unique in the breadth of offerings that we have in the marketplace as well. The group that you're talking to today, my group, is part of the online productivity team here at Nettrix. So we work with our clients to implement what is typically seen as the Office 365 product suite. We help them with how they use collaboration tools to make their organizations better, and that's the area that we work in. So we talked about technology and visioning, change communication. On the front end, how do users want to use technology? On the back end, let's make sure we're communicating with them on how that's going to be. We also have unique products. So CloudHelm is our own private cloud offering, very strong capabilities to help clients move to the cloud, leverage the cloud in different ways. So that's one example of a little bit about us. Any questions about Nettrix? I'll turn it over to Jim.
All right. So what is this funny word that starts with A, Akumina? We are an independent software vendor to Microsoft. Microsoft is invested in our company and holds a seat on our board of directors and is very excited about the technology that we have developed, which is, in its simplest form, it's a framework that sits on top of SharePoint on-premise or online to make the deployment of beautiful, engaging, and personalized digital workplaces much quicker and easier to deploy than has been possible in the past, and to eliminate most, if not all, of the custom development that was formerly required to create these workspaces. I mentioned that's its simplest form, but really our framework is capable of being what we would call an abstraction layer on top of all of Office 365. Think about, if you're familiar with the Office 365 suite, I'm going to sort of talk to you all as though you are familiar with it, and I hope that's true. Is anybody less than familiar with Office 365 as an offering? Okay, good. Our framework can also serve as a layer on top of all of Office 365 and be utilized to bring in bits and pieces of the various applications within that suite to create collaboration spaces that are tailored to the specific use case you have in mind. I'm going to talk about an offering we've created called Workspaces. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself at this point, where we've taken a bit of Yammer and SharePoint and Exchange and Groups and created a project-based collaboration offering. That's a tease. I'll talk about that more in a little bit. And then beyond that, we have the ability to bring in data and bits and pieces of any application that presents an API. So the ramifications of that capability are very broad when we again narrow the focus back down to digital workplace and what that means. But sticking to the simple version of what we do, we enable the creation of digital workplace experiences that are beautiful, engaging, and personalized, easy to use and manage, and don't look like SharePoint. These words in bold are the ones that I heard over and over and over again when I worked for a consulting firm, the largest Microsoft consulting firm in the world, which is called Avanade. It's the Microsoft technology division of Accenture. I heard folks in your role say all the time, I want an intranet, or I want a digital workplace experience that is beautiful, engaging, and delivers targeted personal content to the user based on their role, geography, office location, division, whatever, and doesn't look like SharePoint. And Akumina workspaces do not look like SharePoint. They look like this. This is a system we're deploying at Whole Foods. Or like this, Putnam Investments, a well-known financial services firm that's a customer of ours. I already talked a little bit about why customers use our framework to deploy these systems, and what you just saw has been possible for a long time. As I mentioned earlier, up till very recently, even as early as last year or year before, almost all the systems like this were deployed custom built. When I was with Accenture, we would spin up large offshore teams in India, and the projects were $1 million and more for our larger customers, and they would take 6 to 12 months to deploy. And when we were done, everybody just sort of collapsed over the finish line, and were broke and didn't want to ever think about intranet ever again. And phase 2 never happened. Well, when I say we drastically reduced the time and expense necessary to deploy, I mean it's less than half of the time necessary to deploy systems like that than it used to be. The resulting systems, perhaps even more importantly, are much more highly malleable and agile, and lend themselves better to a phased deployment. Because of the nature of a custom developed system, you don't have to retain the dev team, you don't have to keep them all together in order to have that knowledge and then move on to phase 2. People can pick up where things were left off because they have a framework to work within, and deploy additional capabilities over time. You're with a consulting firm, so that's good for your business because you can talk about what comes next and next and next and next with a framework like ours in a way that was less achievable when everything was custom built. Thirdly, because our solution includes what we call a management console, we're going to show this later in the demonstration, content managers, the people that keep the content fresh in that digital workplace, post articles in a corporate communication use case, don't need to know SharePoint. They don't need to become quasi-SharePoint administrators. It's much easier to update articles, set site alerts by location, again, targeted content, than it has been traditionally to this point. You're going to see that demonstrated. And then, again, integration with any application that has an API is made possible through the Akumina framework. So we can bring in information from ERP, manufacturing systems, Salesforce, Box.com, what have you. Out of the box, we provide integration with Microsoft applications very easily, but you can create integrations with those other applications in addition to that. So that's what Akumina is. Right?
Great. Thanks, Jim. So I'm going to talk a little bit now about our own digital workplace transformation here at Nettrix. I joined Nettrix about 2.5, 3 years ago. And when I came in, I saw a need for a central place to collaborate, communicate, and share information throughout the organization. As you saw on the slide or on the video, we're now about 350 people. We've got lots of locations all over the globe. And we've got not only, do we have lots of people all over the globe, but we also tend to work remotely a lot. Our facilities, like this office here in Chicago, are great for people who may need to come and park for a couple hours, but most people don't have a permanent desk here or at our other office up north. So what were we going to do? When I came in, I said, gosh, this is really a need in the organization. I want to address it. And the executive management said, great, we need that addressed. My goals and our goals that we kind of collectively agreed to were some of these. Number one, encourage a flow of communication, a flow of information. Number two, don't embrace email. Email, from our perspective, gets overused for a lot of important communication. The problem with email is it's transitory. I send an email to Jim. Troy joins the organization the next day. He doesn't get the email. So he doesn't know about our policy or procedure or whatever it may be. And so,
spam?
Pardon?
They could drop to spam?
Yeah, it could have dropped to spam, or simply he joined the day after I sent the email, so he never saw it, right? I don't think to resend it to the people who joined. So not embracing email is a big part of what we hope to accomplish. Better access to information, freedom to design to our workforce. So our workforce is very mobile. They have to have a mobile friendly platform that communicates to them in the right way. And what I call great support for the infrequent updater. We've got practice managers and practice directors and people within operations who need to update information, but they may do it 4 times a year. And so we can't retrain them every time. It's got to be a system that's very intuitive for them to go in and update the information that's on the platform.
Mike, like I said, our organization is very closely aligned with Microsoft, and a term that we hear from Microsoft all the time is people need to spend less time looking for information and more time acting on information.
Yeah.
And they've done studies on it that show that 80% of people's jobs are just them looking for stuff, and then the other 20% is people actually doing something with it, which is their job.
That's right.
And so, yeah, that's right on message with Microsoft.
Yeah. So we went out in the marketplace as a customer and we said, what platform are we going to use? And we found Akumina, and we implemented them for our own use before we ever implemented them for a customer. And that was important, obviously, for a couple reasons. Use what you sell, but really because as an organization, we had problems that we need to solve. And Akumina was the right platform for us. And it was really turned out to be. So before, the screenshot on the left, on-prem SharePoint that was full of dead ends, warning signs, and what I call broken streetlights, right? People would walk down these paths in our intranet and it'd be just kind of dark. This was the home page of the intranet. Not too inviting, not too encouraging, not too engaging. We implemented our own digital workplace. We branded it. It's called Ned. We refer to it. Hey, go find that on Ned. Check Ned. Did you look at Ned? Did you talk to Ned? Have you asked Ned how he's doing today? We really personalized the platform. Large traditional SharePoint document libraries, perfectly at home, shared calendars, all of that fits all within the SharePoint world. But we've got this front end that is more encouraging, more engaging, more able to, as Jim said, get the information to the users when they need it so they can go act on it.
Can I point out some things on this screenshot? So I mentioned earlier how our framework enables digital workplaces to consolidate information from more than one system onto what we call a single pane of glass or a single page. So in this single screenshot, you can see that it's connected to Exchange or Active Directory, where you can look up people, events, that would be calendaring and Exchange. You've got Yammer integrated here, and Facebook, which is obviously a non-Microsoft application. And that's just a simple example of how the framework enables you to consolidate information into one screen, and it helps you envision how it enables people to spend less time looking for stuff because it's presented to them.
Okay. So that was kind of our own journey. And what we found is that our users are embracing this platform. They've begun going there first. When it used to be the call or the email to HR, now it's, hey, I went and looked in Net, I found what I needed, I'm ready to go. I can go use that information and do what I need to. So it's been a great platform for us. All those goals that I had when we started this project, I think we've definitely met, and then some. So we're excited about moving forward with it. We're always adding to it, not just on the content side, but integrations as well. Third-party integrations are very important to us. We use probably 4 different systems to run the business. ServiceNow, NetSuite, Expensify, SuccessFactors, and there's probably 1 or 2 other ones that I'm forgetting. So we've already identified areas that we're going to pull in content into Ned so we can share it with the users more quickly.
SuccessFactors, you mean it's like a KPIs and performance management?
Yeah, and training. They also have a training module, LMS.
T&D, okay.
Yeah, it's a couple different modules with SuccessFactors. Okay. Now I'm going to turn it over to Troy.
All right. Next.
There we go. Oh. Survey says. This is
the longest 5 seconds of the day.
Our work is done. Good luck, Troy. We'll see you. All right, thank you.
So unlike these guys, I can't walk around too much because I've got to drive the demo, but I'll start by describing what you guys are seeing here in this one site, and I'll go through it with a little bit more depth, and then I've got some other sites we can bring up. So as Jim pointed out before, and as Mike talked about, what we provide is, think of it in terms of providing experience layers that people can work with. What you're seeing is an engagement layer for employees to consume information. So whether that information is news articles, like you're seeing across the top of this screen, or calls to other systems down this left-hand rail. I can see my events for the day. I don't have to go over to my email account to see that. I can see who's online and say something like Skype that I normally communicate with and start a conversation with them right away. I can have integrations to other systems. This is a Power BI integration for showing off performance and measurement and metrics. And there's a whole host of other capabilities that you can bring to the table with this type of interface. Again, it's all highly personalized. So I'm seeing things, my activity, things I've worked on and consumed to get back to them. So it's highly personalized. The person I'm logged in here, Adriana, in this fictional example, she works in Phoenix and she's aligned to the maternity NICU practice for this organization. So that's why she's seeing content that's aligned to those two areas. And if we take a look at, scrolling down the page here a little bit, we continue that. So, I'm seeing content from the hospital that she's aligned to, St. Joseph's Medical Center. That's a completely different site, but I'm getting that content served into this homepage for me because of who I am, because of who I'm logged in as. And as Jim and Mike had mentioned, there's other types of content here at play as well. So think in terms of, rich media and video to engage people. Think in terms of, showing important events that people need to be aware of right on the homepage, or even allowing people to interact with the data through things like polls and surveys and forms. We've built, and this is where the rapid development that Jim talked about comes into play. We've built a whole host of what we call them widgets, but I like to think of them as front-end building blocks or components, and frameworks. So a widget is going to be something like a news item or an event or a calendar or any of the other dozens of components we've built. We've also built frameworks, so think in terms of content targeting and personalization. That's a framework we've built. We've built in a nice multilingual framework that makes it easy to both maintain and present multilingual content to people very, very, very seamlessly.
Let me pause that point.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you're global. You've got locations all over the place. And again, multilingual deployments of digital workplaces has been possible for a long time. In SharePoint in particular, there's a function called variations that will enable you to propagate multilingual sites. But whenever you update content, you have to update the content in each of those multilingual environments, where we provide a capability through the Akumina framework that leverages Bing Translate so that content can be updated in one location and then translated and propagated across those multilingual environments. Now, speaking realistically, once it gets there, it's about 85% of the way done. It needs to be localized. Any slang will need to be, adjusted so that it makes sense in the local dialect. But it nevertheless does reduce a lot of that labor that's been associated with maintaining multilingual environments.
No one's concerned about their content being translated on the cloud, like on an open website. We're a little concerned about using those types of translation services.
Yeah, I'm a lousy source of infrastructure and security answers, but it's in use by the biggest financial institutions, and we have the Defense Department as one of our clients.
And it is a private cloud translation, so you have to have a subscription key. You have to have things encrypted. It's not like you're going to Bing Translate or Google Translate out in the public world. It's actually leveraging what Microsoft calls cognitive services, which has a heck of a lot of other stuff underneath it. But yeah, you have to set up an account. You have to have a security key in order for you to communicate from our system out to theirs. So it is very secure. Microsoft has to make sure things are secure like that because of data privacy laws that they have to adhere to globally.
It's translated automatically?
To what?
It's translated automatically?
It can be, yes. Yeah, you have settings. So you can, some of our customers don't want to translate things automatically. They want a person to do it. And so in those cases, they wouldn't turn on auto-translate. They would have a native speaker do it. Other customers want to either use the auto-translation without any tinkering around with it, and others want to use it as a starting point. So in those cases, you can turn it on so it's automatically translated into any one of, I think, 200 plus languages.
Because I'm working for Toyota and Lexus, and we're waiting for 2 months for somebody to translate it.
Yeah, you're probably using a translation house.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another route you can go with translation. It's supposed to be 100% accurate because you actually have people doing the translation. The problem is you have lag, you have wait time. It's not automatic, and it's expensive.
Not in use already.
I'm sorry?
Mhm.
And it's in use, yeah, exactly.
It's not in use, yeah.
So yeah, it is expensive as well. So we have some customers that kind of figure out where they want to translate what. For very, very critical content, they'll go to a translation house to make sure it's 100% accurate. For other stuff, they won't even translate at all because it's not used across multiple offices. And then for other things, they will auto-translate just to at least provide access to that content in that language that they want to. And so you can mix and match and do whatever you want from a process standpoint.
Okay, but this content is absolutely only intranet, so you can't, for example, just put some words and it's popped from the Google or somewhere else. No.
So our platform natively doesn't do that.
Okay.
You can integrate, and we have been integrated with things like those public translation services. Like you can have an icon up here that says translate this page.
I mean, can we add some box which will automatically search all information about our company?
Oh, yes. Yeah, like if you wanted to say have, and I've got examples of this, if you wanted to have a Twitter feed or an RSS feed or some other external feed being brought into the page, yes, you can do that. And it can either be connected to multiple accounts or maybe you're watching a hashtag.
I mean,
they want to
just
bring
news about our company on internet.
Yes.
Google Alerts.
Yeah, Google Alerts.
Yeah.
That's another use for cognitive services as well. Bing has this great search engine built in where you can actually, and if we have time, I don't know if we will or not, I can actually show an example of it where you can surface information about an entity, whether it's a company or an event or whatever it is, automatically, and it can just keep refreshing that information for people. So there's a lot of different solutions to bring in that type of content.
As an aside, we are actually bringing in Google information onto this page down at the bottom, weather and traffic, intentionally not from Microsoft services to show.
And that's actually a great point because this is, I think, WeatherBug is the program, and this is a Google map. So that's external data coming into the site, but we're still able to detect who the user is and redirect that data accordingly. So again, Adriana is in Active Directory listed as being in Phoenix, and so that's why she's seeing that Phoenix traffic, the Phoenix weather. Even though they're coming from a third-party data source, we're not sucking this data into a database somewhere and then presenting it. It's a live feed from those mapping and weather services.
Can we also add the live camera? It's weird, but for example, in our company we have very huge line in a cantina.
Yeah.
And
People want to know when there's a line at the cafeteria.
Yeah,
It's awesome.
as long as you have the
Cafeteria.
the back end of that. What I mean is, as long as you have the camera equipment and the way to stream it, then yes, we can consume it. One of our customers is the Boston Red Sox, and they will, during games, live stream the games onto a page on the intranet. So people can go and click into it, watch it if they want to. Well, they've got all that equipment to be able to capture that video. We can allow them to present it in the page.
And we can sell you the equipment to do it.
And they, yes, Metrics each all the equipment to do that.
All tied together.
So yeah, and by the way, keep the questions coming. I do a lot of these demos, and I like when they're interactive, so that's good. So again, this gets back to, again, it's easier and more rapid to develop things when you start from something, right? So we've got, for example, let me open a few of these things up here real quick. And I promise I'll get to some other sites too. Just to show a couple examples. So if I go over to, let me let it load there, the directory page, for example. Everybody wants to be able to allow employees to find one another. And you often don't know, especially as companies get large, you have many offices, you don't know who somebody is, but you might know what you're looking for, right? You've got a project you want to collaborate on, and you need somebody with a particular skill set or focus. And so we allow people to go in and search by things other than just name, right? And so I can go in and search by department, by office location. But the benefit of using our framework and components to start from is that they're open. This is not this thing is as a starting point, not the end point. Meaning that if you wanted to add other filters, that's a configuration. We've got a lot of people that want to put in more than just department, right? They want to put in skill set. Or in healthcare, this is a really big focus for them. They want to put in level of professional attainment. So am I a master's of nursing or something like that? Because they want people to be able to mentor each other and work with each other. The best way to find somebody, if you're, say you're a new nurse in a hospital, the best way to find a mentor is to look for people who are MPNs or they're masters in nursing. And so that's a configuration. You can just add filters and they'll show up here. You also have the ability to customize this as well. And what I mean by that is complete look and feel change, complete functionality change if you want. That's more on the development side. That's where partners like Netrix come in. They can extend the platform, so it's not rigid. You're not stuck with what you have, what you see on the screen in front of you. You have the ability to mold and maintain things as well. Does that make sense so far?
Can you add them in the same group?
What do you mean?
For example, if I have a project and we need a couple of people to join us.
Yes. Yes, so create a collaboration group, a project group. Yes, we've got a product called Workspaces that's built on top of Microsoft's cloud collaboration technologies. So think Exchange, think something called Planners, task management, think Conversations, all bringing that together, document management, all bringing that together into a central user experience. I can probably show you one of those today as well. But yes, you could. So that's a great use case. So you found, let's say, I'll just use Aaron as example. You found Aaron because he matches the skill set that you're looking for. You want to invite Aaron into a group along with yourself and some others. You can literally just stand up a workspace. It's all wizard-based. Invite those people in, collaborate around whatever it is. It could be a document, could be an event, could be a project, whatever it is. Archive that later on, delete it later on if you want to, but really give people an environment that can be a central area for them to work on something, even when they're not in the same location together.
So that functionality he's describing, which again is called Workspaces, it's part of our latest release, is built around project-based collaboration. Now, taking a step back, I do want to just linger on this point a little bit. So all of the collaboration tools from Microsoft, and there are many. You could think of Exchange as a collaboration tool, SharePoint obviously, Yammer, Groups, Teams, Skype, there's a lot of them. And they're all designed for groups of people that stay together forever. Think about the Chicago-based sales team group, or the Netrix Chicago, et cetera, et cetera. What they're not designed very well for is for groups of people to come back, execute a project, and then move on to the next thing, specialty chemicals. Think about it. I've worked with other organizations that they have a client, they need a formulation, they gather, they collaborate, they share documents, they talk about it amongst each other, and then, someday the formulation is delivered to the customer and the project is over, right? That is what this is ideally suited for, and it's a nice showcase for our technology because, as I mentioned earlier, we borrowed a little bit of Yammer, so there could be a Yammer feed in that project space, a little bit of SharePoint to share documents, Exchange for calendaring and contacts, and some functions from groups as well. And we're applying it to another healthcare customer so that doctors can share diagnostic artifacts, x-rays, notes from doctors' visits, things like that around cancer patients, so that the doctors can go to the site at different times, the oncologist, the radiologist, and others on that team, and together, although they will not be all in the same place at the same time, and that was important because it's impossible to get this $1 million group together all at the same time. That group can, over the course of a day, render a group decision about the course of treatment for that patient. Now that's just one example, a healthcare example, but again, It could be applied to an IT organization, could be applied to a specialty chemical organization, you name it. So, so I just wanted to.
Yeah, if I have time, I can
Dive on that.
show you a couple
Yeah.
screenshots or examples of that. What I wanted to talk about next, before getting into some other design examples and use cases, because there's a few others that we can share as part of the demo, is that, you know, and we'll get into different designs so you can see this, but what this is this is the engagement layer for people. You know, think of everybody in the company working with this, right? But as Mike said earlier, one of their challenges was they've got updaters as well, right? They have, you know, especially infrequent updaters, people that need to actually produce this content. And so how do you make it easy for them to do that, for that care and feeding of the site? Because if it's not easy, people aren't going to do it. And so it doesn't matter all the great integrations you have or great design or accessibility. If the content isn't relevant, isn't fresh, nobody's going to go there. People are going to stop using it. And so that's the other experience layer that we've created. I'll bring it up over here real quick. Is this what we call the app manager. So think in terms of like apps on a smartphone or a tablet, where I have very specific things that I need to do. I don't necessarily need to be trained in a system like SharePoint or some other back-end system to do my job. I have to usually, because that's the interface people give me. But I can be given an app, like those company news articles. I literally have an app that I can use to go in and author a news article. I don't care what back-end system it sits in or how that system might be very complex. I just have the ability to come in and quickly work with that content. This is also personalized. I'm only going to see the apps I have permission to, and that I should care about. So we literally have some customers that have people that have one app. That's all they manage is one thing. We also certainly have much more depth as well. So maybe I want to go in and edit a news article here. I'm able to do that easily. Again, it doesn't matter to me that, you know, this news article happens to sit in SharePoint somewhere. And if anybody's ever tried to use SharePoint to edit content, you know it's not a very straightforward exercise. It's a layered product, and so it's difficult to get into, especially if you don't use it very frequently. We've modeled ours after, you know, industry standard web content management interfaces. So I have the ability to go in and quickly, you know, update. Maybe it's just the body I need to update, or maybe I want to go in and put an expiration date on it. I can quickly update the things I need to, and then publish or submit those for approval or change the language, you know, translate it. I can do all of that in one screen without having to be trained very deeply in these products. I mean, our end user training is, we measure it in hours and not days or weeks, because it's set up to be very simple for people to come in and work with. And so that's the other side of it. There's certainly, if I go back here, and I know I don't have an hour to do this stuff, so I won't dive in too deep, guys. But, you know, I also, and I'm logged in as a global admin, so I'm going to see everything. But we also have apps for administrators, for developers, for designers that make their jobs more straightforward and more easy to accomplish. And so, you know, you're not forcing people into this box of, oh, well, it's built on this platform, you've got to go and learn it intimately. You can give them an interface to work with so they can easily produce that content. You know, I don't, other than in very, very specific cases for public-facing websites, almost nobody has somebody on staff who's just, all they do is manage content. That's just part of somebody's job, and along with everything else they have to do. And so if you don't make it easy for them to update it, they're not going to do it. It'll be the last thing on their list, and that last thing never gets done. And so,
Yeah, good example. So we deployed a digital workplace. I was with the consulting firm, with Accenture. It was another healthcare client, coincidentally, 26,000 employees. They had 300 people from around the organization who were content managers on their intranet, people posting news articles, updates from various departments, sharing knowledge, things of that nature. 300 people. Their side job was to update content on the intranet. In order to deploy a system like that, they had to take each and every one of them off-site for a full day to teach them how SharePoint worked, because they were not using a framework like ours. Since then, Accenture has standardized adoption, or has standardized deployment of their digital workplace solutions on our framework. And so I can tell you that added 2 months to the project and probably cost the customer about $350,000 because it extended the deployment for so long. Yes.
Some companies still teach how to use HTML.
Yeah, would be even worse. You don't know either one in our case.
Yeah, and I guarantee you for the majority of those 300 users, they probably don't use it all the time, and that day of training
So they forgot it.
is gone, right? If you're not in there using it all the time and it's a complex system, you're going to forget how to do it, and then all of a sudden you're trying to call the one person who can help you.
Right.
And then things just start getting funneled through IT. That was frankly, one of the core challenges the Red Sox had when they first started working with us is they have this one woman named Helen, and she's the person that everybody calls to know something. Like, I need to do this, I need to do that. Well, that's because they couldn't update their intranet. Literally, we had first engaged with them about a year ago. They had an urgent reminder on their homepage that people had to take this action. It was from 2 years previous. They had just not been updating their site because it was always the last thing on someone's mind, and it always had to be IT or what they call baseball operations doing it. Well, guess what they're spending their time on? Making the organization run, making baseball operations run. The intranet, it was an afterthought to them. Well, now they've got all of their functional groups editing and maintaining their own content, and they're able to do it easily. I wanted to bring this site up, not to kill you with content because there's a ton of it in here, just to show that from a design perspective, we don't limit what you can do. So this is a customer that wanted to have, they call them cards, but think of it as a very kind of tile-based interface that's personalized to somebody. So I can come in and work with content or work with other systems. So I can come in and let me launch this one too. That's your question from earlier. I can work with approvals that maybe sit in something like an ERP system or a task management system. I can work with, PDP or my personal goals coming from a system like a Workday, all in a central environment. But from a design perspective, it doesn't look anything like that other site that we were just in. And you have the ability to, from a design or use case perspective on the front end, build whatever experience you want or need to. Here's another example here. I have way too many tabs open now, so let me find it here real quick. Here we go. Where this is an organization that wanted to provide a homepage for every user. So when I come in, we often see this as a dashboard, and I'll show you another example of a dashboard here in a minute, but they wanted to do it as a homepage. So literally when I come in here, I've got news delivered to me, announcements, tweets from the organization or about the organization. I have the ability to go in and participate in social conversations and say a Yammer feed. They use a chatbot for a lot of their medical leave and things like that. Someone wants to apply for leave, they can do it right through the chatbot. And I have this dashboard environment, this homepage, that I can use and customize to my own personal taste for what I need to look at that day. So I can bring in these different content feeds and again have whatever look or feel I want, even when that content is not coming from a Microsoft destination or source. And so from a design perspective, from a use case perspective, we're a very open system. You have the ability to go in and build, you really design, look and feel, whatever you want to do there. And
a little color commentary. So that earlier page you saw for Dignity Health, that's what our system looks like out of the box. But even a tailored user interface experience like you're seeing here with GlaxoSmithKline doesn't take that long to deploy. I know that one with Singapore Institute of Technology, that represents one guy's work for about 1 week to create that completely custom interface on top of our framework. So I like to say we're not merely intranet in a box. If you're with a smaller organization, you want intranet in a box. You want something that you can stand up really quick and easy and not require a lot of people to do a lot of custom things. But with our framework, the sky is the limit in terms of what you can do with the look and feel and what you can do in terms of data you can bring in from other sources.
And again, a good example that would be the Red Sox again. They started with our out-of-the-box look and feel because they wanted to get something up rapidly, and it was much better than what they were ever going to build on their own. A year later, it doesn't look anything like that because over that year, as Jim mentioned before, they were able to iteratively build new things, change the look and feel. They didn't start out with that video feed on day one. That came in about 6 months later. So they're able to layer in new solutions as they want them and need them, but they had a starting point. They weren't starting from this blank canvas. And a lot of times that's daunting. It's hard to just start from nothing and build your vision, right? It's good to have something to work within. The reason I brought up this page, it's a dashboard again, so it's very similar to what I looked at before, is based on what opportunity I select here, this is a salesperson's dashboard, things modify. So my supporting collateral changes based on the market or offering that opportunity sits in, But the other thing that's being surfaced here is this accounts insights from Cognitive Services. So it's going out and looking for information on that company and bring that data to me, so I don't have to go in and search for it. And so that's an example of bringing those kind of external feeds in as well. And so we do a lot of those types of integrations within our software. We also, pull this up real quick, the front end can be fully mobile enabled. So this is that dashboard I showed before on a mobile view. And I can get in all that content, I can get all that information, I can work with it, I can bring my tray out over here and go in and even schedule a quick event with somebody if I want to right from here. And it'll send out an Outlook invite for everybody that I add to that event. And I don't have to go off to email to do that. And so we're able to provide these experiences in both desktop and mobile, in any design that you can think of, with a lot of built-in capabilities. But I think the biggest thing is it's also open. It doesn't block you from doing other things if you want to.
How easy is it for you to start with someone's existing intranet content and pull it into your out of the box? Does it matter what the platform is? Is that?
It does a little bit on the technical side, and I think this is a better question for Netrix, but when you look at content migration, you want to look at content structures. So how is that content structured in that source system? Inside of so we leverage SharePoint for the back end. SharePoint's a very highly structured content engine. So if you've got good content structure, that migration becomes easier. If it's not structured, then there is a bit of work to do.
And there are tools that exist to help us pull content in. To Troy's point, it does depend on where you're coming from.
It's just all got to be mapped from where it sits to where it will sit.
Unfortunately, a lot of our content is not, they're not documents, they're not links.
Mhm.
It's created on the page.
Web content,
So that's probably not as easy.
It can still be structured. So that the news article I showed you before, that's all web content and it's highly structured. So it really depends on that source system in that case. And I'll tell you, the best thing that you can do for your organization is before you even think about migration, do an analysis on the content. Because if it's been a while, I guarantee you 80% of it isn't going to even want to come over.
We've done projects where, well, first of all, you can tell when the last time something was updated. And, just because it's old doesn't mean it doesn't have value. But they sent out a survey to say, if you want this article saved, raise your hand. Well, of course, everybody just says, don't delete my stuff, but they don't really analyze it. So then they took it away. They didn't delete it, but they shut it off, and they waited for people to holler, hey, where's my stuff? So there's a variety of ways you can test the value of the content that's out there, but expect that by default people will just say, even though I haven't touched it for 3 years, don't delete it because that's somebody else's problem. Yeah.
It's like your garage.
Right.
A bunch of stuff in there you haven't used for 3 years, but I'm not going to get rid of it. So any other questions, and did I show what you guys wanted me to from a demo perspective?
That's great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions about
How
the
much
product?
did
So, do you want to tackle pricing, or do you want to?
Well, sure. There's a couple of variables to our pricing.
individual
Pardon me?
individual price or?
It's by band of employees, and I'm just talking about our software in and of itself. So 0 to 1,000 employees would be about $21,000 a year. It's a subscription.
Year.
Yes, 1 to 5,000 would be about $28,000, and then we have pricing all the way up to. And we have customers with 250,000 employees, so
Okay.
it scales up.
The software is built over some other components like Microsoft component, or it is overlay of the existing. So
Yes.
the licensing for that will be different than this, or?
Yes,
that's-
so we have no database in our software. Our database is SharePoint and the other systems that we surface in this environment. So let's keep it simple and talk about Office 365. The data would live in SharePoint Online, in Yammer, in Groups, and any of the other systems that we're consolidating.
Mobile app or mobile app.
So we don't have a native mobile app. We use responsive design. So the screen will raster accordingly to your device, so automatically adjusts. But we've had customers build mobile apps to talk to our stuff. So you can do that.
We would if we could. It's really impossible to build an app for a digital workplace because no two are the same. Well, a digital workplace is such a blank, it's such a white slate,
Oh.
Как там будет с основными параметрами для руководителя, чтобы он видел там?
So to fully answer your question, you would need to license the core platform as well.
So in that case, is there any, like, for me to use this component, this is the license that I will need to acquire? Is there a guideline on that?
We can help with that, yes. I mean, it depends on if you're going SharePoint Online in Office 365 or on-prem. With SharePoint Online, you've got to be in one of the enterprise plans to consume most of the content. If you want to integrate with things like, Outlook, you want to integrate with things like Skype, you have to be licensed for those components. The cool thing is you don't have to enable them, and we have some customers that don't enable those. They're still in SharePoint on-prem, or they don't use those tools. So they simply don't enable those functions, and they use the rest of our system.
So, like, for out-of-box, like, that you have, like, what are the basic components that are required?
So the only components that you're going to want, like an e-license for, or be in SharePoint or be in Office 365, would be the stuff like that, calling into Exchange, calling into Skype. This uses the Graph API. It's a learning engine. Those things are all in the cloud only. They're not on-prem. But all the content here, the news articles, the video, multilingual, content targeting, that directory, I'd say 98% of our components don't require Office 365. It's just those additional services you may want to integrate with, you'd have to be licensed for. Any other questions?
Can I ask one more?
Yeah.
If we want to integrate our custom application, what kind of API is required?
So on the app side, on your app side, we'll need some type of web service, RESTful web service available. On our side, if you wanted to do it yourself, you'd want to have somebody with JavaScript, HTML, and CSS skills to be able to frame that data that you're pulling over into one of our components. All right. I'll be here all day, so if you have other questions.
Literally, this flight doesn't leave till 9.
Right.
So it's got plenty of time.
All right, so do I just stop sharing, or do you have to
Case
reshare now?
studies?
Stop sharing.
Yeah, I don't have those here. So grab another water.
Sure. Well, while that's coming up, I can describe some of our case studies. That was my next bit of this presentation. You heard us talking about the Red Sox. We are based in New England, so we never stop talking about the Red Sox. I should probably talk about the White Sox since I'm here in Chicago. Wrong color Sox. But good customer of ours and a good case study in the possibilities of what our technology enables. As soon as we get our presentation back up, you'll see a screenshot of their legacy intranet. You heard it described earlier. It was on-premise. There were urgent alerts that were 2 years old. Very static, and nobody was using it any longer because it just consisted of a bunch of links and wasn't very helpful to people. And so they deployed their next generation intranet on the Akumina framework. Adoption has been restored. They're using Office 365 themselves. And in addition to replicating the sort of capability they had previously in a better, more stable, more up-to-date platform, they've added all sorts of great new features that you heard about already, like the video capability. And at this moment, they're now deploying their season ticket portal on our framework as well. So all day long, we've talked about intranet, the internal use case, but we actually have the capability to enable extranet portals as well. So it's not merely limited to the internal audience. If we can get that screen back up, I'll show you an example of a customer that's deployed a dealer portal on our framework as well. We had a number of registrants who were with not-for-profit organizations, so I thought I'd cite an example of one of our better-known customers in that not-for-profit space, Big Brothers Big Sisters. Big Brothers Big Sisters. So their existing intranet, which is used by volunteers. You have to think about who's in the local market with Big Brothers Big Sisters. These are people who, they want to spend time with children, right? They're very altruistic, and typically not the type of people who sit at a computer all day long, right? So it needed to be easy to use, and it needed to be able to deliver targeted content to people in Moline and Springfield and Chicago and Columbus, where I live, and in that local market, and tell the story of what's going on in that local market, so it speaks to the user rather than just providing generic sort of national information. And that is exactly what we delivered.
And they purposely wanted it to be a very simple design as well, because they frankly don't want people in the intranet for very long. Because if every time I'm in that intranet looking for something, I'm not helping somebody in my community.
Yes.
So they wanted a very straightforward design. They wanted it to be targeted, like Jim said, so that when I come in based on my role and where I am, I get my content, I can consume it, do what I need to do, and then get back to serving my community.
So yeah, Troy's speaking to the variety of experiences here. You know, Boston Red Sox, they have a lot of money, very sexy look and feel, very nice experience. Not-for-profit organization, wanted to keep it very simple, and that's what was delivered to Big Brothers Big Sisters. We love this graph because they did us the favor of measuring how successful the new digital workplace was in comparison to the old one. And this sort of sad red line there is the usage that they experienced over the course of months with their legacy intranet, and the happy green line is the usage that they measured on the Akumina framework. Obviously much more successful and delivered value to the customer. And finally, I mentioned the capability we offer to not only accelerate the deployment of intranets, internal portals, but external portals as well. This isn't a really cool-looking interface, but this is an extranet portal for a manufacturer that's a customer of ours, Matthews International. And in this case, they've designed a dealer portal that enables their dealers to go in and filter product information, sort of in the same way that you saw with the people picker, where typically I'll pick IT and a location, filter down to a couple people. Similarly, they can do the same. They can filter down their products, and obviously that helps to expedite orders coming from their customers without having to consume anybody's time. It's all automated. Back to you, Mike.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, so great software, terrific platform, powerful technology. The question that our clients ask is, how do we get there? How do we go from, yeah, we like it, to our organization is using it, we're successfully deployed, we've got people that are in there, we're a success. I wanted to run through a little bit at a high level about how we help our clients get there. You saw this before, I'm sure you remember it. This is really about our process. And I'm going to show you some of the artifacts that we've developed and we use with our clients to help them get there. We talked a little bit about research and the content inventory and making sure you've got the right view of what your users want. So for us, it starts a lot of times with a simple survey. We work with our clients to ask their users, what do they want this thing to do? What do they hope to get from it throughout the entire organization, from the C-suite all the way through to workers maybe on a shop floor. And so we help them. Every survey is a little different. We collect the results, and then we end up with a board that we start to look at what's important. And we work with our clients on making sure we've got the right view. You know, the different things that we're going to ignore. What are the workflows that we have to support? There's a bunch of people who aren't sure about things, but we want to capture those replies. What applications do we have to interface with? These are the things that we capture and collect and make sure we're keeping priorities with our clients. As we begin to collect the information and consolidate it, then we go into wireframes. We come up with what is this thing going to look like at an abstract level. What are the different objects that need to be supported? How is it going to be sort of laid out? And from there, we end up with a design. So pretty traditional, standard kind of website design methodology. We're just applying it to the digital workplace. And it's focused internally as opposed to externally. Make sense? Okay, so all of this really leads up to kind of the implementation Bible. implementation guide, and we take all of those widgets and we break them down into what they have to do behind the scenes. So, you know, if there's a poll on the front page, how does it interact with the SharePoint list behind the scenes? If there's a Yammer feed, where are we going to get that from? What are we going to connect it to? These become the deliverables of the first phase of our project, the design and discovery phase. Then we go into implementation. Implementation is behind the scenes. We're tearing all this stuff apart. We're coding it up. We're connecting to your SharePoint tenant, your O365, Skype, Yammer, Facebook, whatever it may be. Concur, if you're using that for expenses. We've got clients that use all kinds of third-party systems, obviously, today. So that's the piece where we kind of go away, do a lot of testing internally. We turn it over to our clients for review, deploy it. That can look like several different things. We may do a proof of concept. We may go company-wide. And then we've got our communication piece on top of that, where we work with our change communication group here inside Netrix to come up with different deliverables that are going to go out to your employees, to make sure they know about it, to make sure they understand not only what is it, but where do I go for more information? How do I get that advanced training on it that I might need? So pretty good process, pretty well thought out. It's worked for us for a number of years. Obviously, we're always tweaking it and looking to improve it, but this has worked really, really well for us in lots of different implementations. Any questions about our process? Make sense?
I have another question.
Yeah.
It's franchising. Do you have office in Russia?
In where?
Russia.
Russia. We do not have an office in Russia.
Do you need business partners?
We're always looking for business partners. We have an office in Bulgaria, but not Russia yet.
It's franchising?
Yeah.
Yes?
Sure.
Okay, give me your business plan or what it means.
Okay. That'd be great. Yeah, we're always looking for partners.
Yes, I'm interested.
Excellent. Terrific. Okay. Good. And that leads into the question and answers. Yeah, the thank you part. Lots of great questions. It's been terrific. Are there other questions that we can answer? Like we said, Troy's here till 9, so he doesn't want to be bored.
Do you have studying to use this program study? Or what?
We have training. Yeah.
Training.
Training.
Yes.
And how long it's training?
Developer training is a day. Administrative training is another day.
Там есть помощь, сопровождение, там, франчайзинга?
So you, of course, you have any support, right?
Yes.
Все включено, да? Ну, look like, ну, как этот, у Макдональдса уже есть университет. Типа такое.
Yeah. She's asking, is it possible to ask you any questions during the implementation and after it?
Yeah, so we really want our clients to be as self-sufficient as they want to be. So we have clients who say, teach us everything. Don't do anything that you don't tell us how to do. And then we have other clients who say, I don't ever want to know how the sausage gets made.
And it is can translate in anything language. Any language.
No, not any language. So JavaScript, CSS on the front end.
She means Russian.
Oh, I'm sorry, language in that regard. Yeah.
Any language that Microsoft supports, which is almost all of them.
Language?
Kazakhstan.
Поддерживает Microsoft.
Okay, Microsoft.
Yeah. There's 186 languages or something like that.
А у них работают переводчики?
Он это сказал все автоматически, вообще круто.
Нет, а то, что будут обучать, есть переводчики обучают?
She's asking, do you have Russian speaker teachers?
No, I don't.
What's the question?
Anyway,
Russian-speaking teachers.
It's not a big problem, right? You
it's
can
not.
always hire a
Yeah.
translator.
Translator.
I'm willing to learn.
Yeah,
Can't take long
Great
Russian,
language.
right? It's one of those simple languages, isn't it? It's practically like
Anyway,
Spanish.
I can help, yeah.
Okay, good. Any other questions that we can answer? No? All right, as the screen says, thank you for coming. We very much appreciate your time. I'm available to answer questions after. Obviously, Jim and Troy are happy to as well. Sudarshan Raman from the Netrix team is here. He's one of our
Suds.
Suds, as we like
Love
to
the
call him.
nickname. Yes.
Team lead on the SharePoint and collaboration team. So he's the guy that's actually going to answer it correctly any technical questions. We're just here to sort of make it up.
Yeah.
So, thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Can you have your business cards?
Absolutely. Let me see if I have any. Yeah, there we go. Anybody else?
Можно им оставить электронную
Happy to hand
почту,
them out.
чтобы они отправили условия, там, как они
Thank you for coming today. Appreciate it. Thank
условия
you.
заработка.
Mr. Darson.
Это же как CRM-система для организации, и в месяц 60 тысяч рублей только платят организации. А
Worthwhile?
у нас девятки, там миллион, 2 миллиона
I saw Alex peek his head around the corner. You want me to go see if I can grab him? Okay, I'll see if he's available.
The migration is always a puzzle to be solved,
Well, we
but
just did it,
Yeah.
you know, and we did exactly what you're suggesting, is that we knew a lot of the content was outdated. We knew that most people weren't using it.
Yeah.
I manage our program, yeah.
But now that we've recreated a lot of content, it's all right.
Discussion that
We
we're
weren't very
thoughtful.
Госучреждения, там есть работники везде, там,
and it just doesn't.
Я по привычке к такому обращаюсь.
We went from probably what was
А я ему
worse than
напишу, он пришлет.
the Red Sox had.
Very interesting.
It didn't even help.
Very good job.
yeah,
It was literally just a
it's
link.
better than it was, but it's not as good as it could be.
It was terrible.
Well, let me just offer this as food for thought.
В
So I
России
think
еще
the
нету такого,
workspaces
скорее
offering,
всего.
will
Да,
be
если
combined
в России нет людей, можно первый, да, развивать
Yeah.
программу.
I got nothing.
I know.
Потому что я работала.
So you can't even start with something different.
We could be.
Usually we would lay it over something else.
But you've got to have Red Sox have 300 employees year round.
What I was gonna say
И вот это вот
is
MetLife
that
has
workspaces
170
capability around project-based
There's no,
collaboration.
if there was an average,
Basic.
we run 1,000 with that separately. But it's got to be either Benjamin Morrison, Williams,
То есть нам продавать
Here's
так
some
часто.
close to screenshots, these are all screenshots. We have to have Big Brothers be careful on premise.
Okay.
They really only have 50 employees.
Тупо ходить по организациям и так.
But it's helpful for me to just know
Вот
what,
именно,
That's why you see the
because I think
difference
that,
between institutions.
again, I think that we've lived in this bubble
Want more
of
получается просто научиться.
what we've just paid for.
Yeah.
But I don't think a lot of people are getting outside of that to figure out what's really possible.
Yeah.
And I know we picked .NET New because it was free.
Mhm.
And we didn't have any kind of priority
And then,
around
Нормально.
updating the intranet. And so one developer just started tinkering around with .NET New because it was free.
Right.
And then when the company decided to do something, they were like, oh, you're already working on that, let's just use that. So again, not super thoughtful, not like, what do we really need, what do people need?
Thank you for
Um,
coming.
I've seen it before, Shirley Williams, I described earlier, a massive company.
У каждого
Spent millions of my own dollars.
But that mindset,
But they start from the ERP.
Thank you.
They're very